Do you want to spend $40,000 a year is really the question we're asking.
Do you believe that film school is still a necessary step for aspiring filmmakers, or is a hands-on experience more valuable in today's industry?
Wow, easy question to start with.
That's like the big question.
Yeah.
I went to CAP.
I went to State Polytechnic in Calgary.
Hey.
Yeah.
I went nowhere.
I also went nowhere, but no, I have no formal film school in me.
I mean, you can go either way, right? Like, film school is a great place to meet people. And I think the last thing for me was the best thing was meeting the people that I met. And it's also just like different people learn in different ways, right? So some people learn from a more constructive, planned out curriculum, whereas some people maybe do need that like kind of just like jump on set and figure things out. So it really depends on the person, I think.
For me, I always thought it was about the job. I mean, if you and I are at an audition and they want your look for a role, it's not going to matter how well I'm trained. I'm not booking that job. And same to me and Hannah is like, if we're going in, no one really cares at the end of the day if you're from Juilliard, but you can't act worth a darn. That training isn't going to save you in that job. So that's always been my outlook on it.
It's so interesting, like what you said, Darion. It really depends on the person, because I love formal education. I love actually being in a classroom and learning theory and learning through a curriculum, but I actually really appreciate the fact that I didn't get any of that in the film world, because I think university was like 5 years of my life, 18 to 23, and those were not my most mature, developed years.
Right.
And I think coming out of school as an adult and trying out work in a whole different industry and getting these life experiences made me a bit more ready to try out film, maybe a little bit more motivated, because I didn't have a class I had to go to because I paid for it. I truly had to search for it on my own, which tested me and my character and my work ethic to see if I really wanted it. And I think my answer is I do.
Yeah.
So I think film school, and how useful it is, I think it all, like, that's kind of the big debate, and like it all comes down to, like Hannah's saying, like who you are, and by that, what role do you want to be? I think it's very dependent on role. If you want to be an AC, don't go. You know, like it comes down to what world you want to end up working in. Do you want to work in union, non-union, commercial, like indie, like that fuels it, and yeah, and what kind of things you want to make. Because CAP is a very industry-oriented school, I had to unlearn a lot that they taught us, because they don't teach us how to operate on indie sets. Everything there I learned on set. It made me feel prepared in a sense that I knew all that mattered was that I had to show up and learn and listen. And I do think that CAP really drilled that into us. It kind of drilled into us, like, you're nothing. Listen, learn, and never complain, never sit down. Like, they drilled in some very messed up things to us, but as well, things that did get me far. And then moreover, and this is one of my big things that I tell people who want to DP or be in these really big leadership roles, and I see it a lot in like younger technicians, and especially like women, non-binary people, like they don't quite have the confidence coming from lamping, ACing, whatever, to DP and direct a team, because we have the most people under us. So it gave me a lot of training of being the boss.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but like enough. And then that combined with like just your natural leadership skills.
I could definitely attest to that. Like, I definitely I started ACing right out of film school. I did a camera trainee program, and I had to relearn everything. Like, they didn't really teach us how to AC on set. They kind of get you like a basic set etiquette, kind of. But it's a relearning process, 100%. But I think for me, it's like, because I really wanted to be a cinematographer when I first went to film school. And I think that the best thing for that is there are certain schools, like, you know, if you go to like New York or LA or even London, they have like very specific programs, like master's programs, you know, for those particular roles. But like a general film school, I think the problem is they're trying to cram in so much stuff to give like an umbrella so that you can go out and do several different things, that it becomes a lot of like, just like you're in the mud and you're just trying to find your way and like find a diamond in this mud, you know? So I think it's like, in that regard, if you want to be if you specifically know what you want to do, like you want to be a director or you want to be a production designer or a costume designer or a cinematographer, whatever that may be, I would just say you probably should just go and start doing that on indie sets, you know, even though I went to film school. But if you don't know what you're doing, you're trying to find and you want to kind of dabble, I think that's where film school can be really, really great, because then you receive teachers that know different things and have different perspectives, and then you get to use equipment that you're not having to pay rental costs for. Again, it comes back to that thing of like, it just depends on who you are and what your kind of place is and where you're trying to look to go, I guess.
Don't think film school was necessary for me to reach that dream, especially because if finances are a concern, you don't have to go. Like, in a practical sense, you can end up on a set and learn what you need to learn. I still have so much to learn, let's be clear. But like I said before, I would appreciate the theory, the education, the curriculum, but from a practical perspective, I feel like I have so much learning going on just by doing it on set.
They actually left us in 4th year and they said, like, just make sure that you have a means and you have a dream. And that's kind of like what I tell people who want advice is like, I always had a means to make money, so I would lamp, AC, like whatever it is, whatever dirty job, and then I would have a dream, and I would make sure that I was still hustling like towards that dream of DPing and also building my role.
I think that's great that they said that though, because I think there's a lot of film schools that don't inform the students that.
Yeah.
And it's like, because I had like, for us, it was like, kind of like, you want to be a director, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah. They were saying that too. It was like only one specific teacher, and I remember one specific class in 4th year, they said that, and it really stuck with me. But there was a lot of like, you're never gonna make a movie.
You can't go into it that pessimistic. This industry is already hard enough from everyone around you, let alone if you are fighting yourself. So yeah, have a reality check. I mean, let's be honest, how many people in our world will ever truly make a sustainable career in any of this? We don't know. But you don't want to lose that. Like, you have to have a love of something. And if you love a scene, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's great.
But there's nothing wrong with having a dream that's a little bit above.
All right. As a filmmaker who has undergone film school education, what specific benefits or advantages do you feel you gain from that experience? Positive and negative.
Specific advantages: meeting your people, meeting people that you will create with. In my case, specifically, I met like people to make short films with, people to make music videos with, and built my little reel in. And I don't know if I could have built it if I didn't have those friends. And then as well, friends who got me technician jobs. So that you'll hear that time and time again, it's about the people and the connection. It gave me like a good POV of, because we did every role in film school, so like what are the sound people's challenges and what's art department's challenges, so it gave me a good like idea of what is happening on a basic level, and it gave me a very basic level of tech knowledge. And that leads me into negatives, is tech knowledge. As a DP, like, it was very hard. All they ever showed us just time and time again was like 3-point lighting and just like, you know, with like a person sitting in a chair. And that was really hard, and we would make films, and just the level of stress about like, I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know how to light this. And a common misconception that I got from film school is that they didn't teach us that you can live and make money in indie world. Like doing commercials and even corporate videos pay amazing. Like, and like, yeah, there is an indie world that you can live in. They instilled a lot of union antiquated views. Like they told us, like on You're Now Christian, they told us do not look actors in the eye ever. and you're nothing and all that. And so then I would be like PAing on these small indie sets, and like it's actually a benefit if you are liked. Like that's a benefit. Like you should be able to have a conversation with whoever you're standing at the crafty table. But I was so scared, and just like that was so drilled into me that like I'm nothing, and like don't talk to anyone, don't look at actors in the eye. And still to this day when I'm DPing, I have this like mental block with actors from that. And so I'm really like working on unlearning it, because it's so important to connect with actors when I shoot them.
I don't think it's be lesser than, it's just be respectful.
Yeah.
If you know you're coming in and you're, let's say, I would say the same thing to a director or to anyone. It's like, if we're shooting a scene where this woman's husband has just been murdered in front of her, yeah, maybe keep the jokes down to a minimum, maybe keep the conversations down, just because if you see they're in their mind, then leave them there. Don't try and instigate that. But it's so awkward when there's 7 people hovering over me, and I'm just trying to say hi, and they just look and they go, ah. I mean, I remember talking to a PA on a film set that I was on, and she goes, "You're the first actor to ever ask my name." Yeah. I went, that's a problem. And that's also, I think on the creative side, we're taught similar things of like, don't interact. And I go, I'm sorry. If that's the way film sets are, I don't want to be there. Because I want us to feel like a unified family. It doesn't mean you have to love everyone, but that respect between parties is something that I think we need more of in the world in general. And I think film sets are just another viewpoint of that.
Yeah, I feel as though advantages for from film school, it's incredible to be in a like-minded space with like-minded individuals who feel the same way that you do and want to. And like the first year of film school was like absolutely inspirational and incredible. You had all these different young and intelligent and creative minds that had these different thoughts and processes on how you can go about making films and the different stories you can tell. So that was definitely one of the greatest things for me from film school. And then, yeah, negative was definitely like, they didn't teach you how to make films from a cinematography perspective. Like, you need to know why they put a light there. Like, it's not good enough someone saying like, it just made sense. or there was a window there and so I'm recreating the sunlight. But it's like, but why did you, bounce it into that bounce? Why did you put it through that specific diffusion? What was the effect you were trying to create? You know, and you can't do that from just someone being like, that's what I did. You know, like I had a friend from film school who was working on indie sets at the time, and he used to watch different cinematographers light and then would take that stuff and use it in his own shoots and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like that should be what we be doing in film school. Like we should be taking a scene or a sequence from film, and you should be breaking that down of how they lit that, why they did the blocking. Like no one teaches you blocking in film school. Like
Really?
We were taught, but like not great.
Yeah,
it's
like I mean, like
also a hard thing to learn. It comes with practice.
For sure. But it's like you have to really break down a Steven Spielberg sequence and understand why he doesn't even cut. Like he can do a whole sequence in one shot where you're going through different shot sizes and telling a story of power cycles and all these different things within one thing. So I feel like that's definitely a negative. Is like film school needs to decide what it actually wants to be. Like, is it actually a film school or is it like a videography school? Because it was funny, like they had this film that years ago a prior class had made, and it was like Hollywood quality. Like I don't know how they did this, but it was like amazing. And for me, I was like, why was that not the first thing, the first day that they showed? We should have sat down, watched that film, and been like, in film school, this is possible. Because there's also that notion of like, in film school, you can't make a good film. Like, you're a film student, there's no way you can make a good film. And I've seen first-time filmmakers who make incredibly beautiful movies, you know? Because it's storytelling. And I think storytelling has been a part of human history and existence from the beginning of time, right? So it's that notion as well that it's like, we are students, but we're also artists, right? And I think that is a huge and important thing that I didn't get from film school. I feel like I've only really kind of started that journey of feeling like an artist now.
Such a good note. Like, they were kind of talking about find your voice, but it felt like they weren't giving us the tools or examples to know what voice we could have. And like, I'm only just starting to find it 3 years after film school, and especially cinematography wise, like I didn't feel like I knew the tools like lighting styles or lenses or whatnot to have a style. Okay. From your experience, do film students have an advantage over independent filmmakers when it comes to achieving their goals in the industry?
I don't think so, no. And again, it all depends on what it is you're trying to do. I think if you're trying to make films, no. I think film students, depending on the school you go to, are kind of taught to become a worker bee rather than, as I said, an artist. Whereas an independent artist already sees themselves as such, and so they will go into that mode more openly and more vibrantly. I mean, the only thing that you could possibly gain is that you might have into the industry in the sense of like set etiquette and getting into a union quicker or something like that, if that's the path you want to go on.
It also depends how you define an independent filmmaker. Because let's be honest, an independent filmmaker could be a guy named Chad who grabbed his iPhone and went, I'm going to be a director. An independent filmmaker, let's be honest, with things like YouTube now, online forums, mentorships, you could do more training through online articles than some film programs and universities could probably offer you.
Shout out Studio Binder.
Exactly my point. And like, YouTube, jokes aside, I know there's awful reviews. Like TikTok, I see acting reviews on TikTok of how to be an actor, and I go, no. But there are also some very valid pieces of advice. And I think you said it again, it depends the position. The thing is, like, filmmaking is not what it was 50, 60, 70 years ago. They always make the joke of, we have more creative power in an iPhone than MGM had in 1945. And that is truthful to some extent, or like going into the 40s, 50s, 60s, we have better tech, better gear, better equipment that we can afford. So the thing is, the capability to learn in different ways, and it goes back to what you said about film school as a privilege. Some people can afford that. Others don't have the financial means, even $15,000 to someone who's come from low income, or someone who's come from a broken home, or someone who's gone through the foster system, neurodivergent, whatever it could be. They don't always have that capability. They need that assuredness to be able to step on set and make money. So I'm sure, like, I can't speak because I didn't go through it. Honestly, when I get to film set, I love hearing people and just going like, so where do you train? And they go, oh, like I mentored with a friend, and I go, awesome. Because if you're there, if you're a good person, if you're getting the work done and you're doing your job, I could care less the people I hire on my set, whether they've been university trained, because I want to work with good people.
I actually learned to never say that I went to film school.
Really?
Yeah, that's a thing that I do. I don't like, unless someone asks me, what's your journey, or like, did you go to film school? But like, it's a good thing, honestly, not to advertise, if that gives any answer to this question.
You're like, hey, no cap.
And
Yeah.
as long as, this is what I wanted to say. It comes down to reps. Like, we're talking advantages. I think that means you're making things. Being a good filmmaker, whatever position you are, comes down to reps and how much you're doing it and how much practice you have. Nobody is good. Like, it's about making bad films first, and bad, and then they're okay, good, maybe great. Like, it comes down to reps and how you're gonna get that, whether it's at film school or whether it's on your own with your iPhone. That's up to you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, it's like, are you practicing in film school? Are you practicing out in the real world? Are you practicing, like, to begin with? And then also, I think, like, the film industry, like, I've realized, like, networking matters so much, more than any industry I've ever worked in. And, like, yeah, it's a good and a bad thing that relationship building and connections and all that matters so much. If you really want it, you'll find your way on a film set. You'll find a connection with one person, 2 people, 3 people. And so I don't really think you need film school to do that. Because, yeah, it's about saying hi, hello. It's nothing's stopping you from doing that.
The best film school really is sliding in the DMs. Like, genuinely.
Wow, can we get that with a title quote right there?
And like to this day, like still, like if I have a week off, I'm trying to take 2 people to coffee. Like it's such a hustle. Like I was talking about hustle culture. It's really real. And going to the networking events, and it's really hard at first. Like I am not a person who really enjoys that. But eventually you just like get it, and you have some questions that you usually ask, and then you realize that it's an exchange that both people want. Like you're both getting something out of it, and that's okay. Like it's not like a malicious thing.
As someone who has pursued a career in filmmaking without formal film school education, what are some of the challenges you've encountered, and how do you see the landscape evolving?
Okay, well, I would say in terms of recognition, immediately, nobody has ever asked me if I went to film school or asked to see my... They haven't even asked for my bachelor's that had nothing to... No one cares, first of all. Like, so that is not a concern. Like, just coming into the industry a little bit doe-eyed, I'd be like, wow. I think maybe a little bit more preparation and a little bit more terminology that I could have learned in film school would have been nice. Would it have been worth paying thousands of dollars to learn it that way, or just doing that Google search on it, like Google Images, and learning it? Like, I mean, I just do the Google search. But again, school is a privilege, and I do think like school can be very beneficial and fulfilling in some ways. So from a personal like preference, just because I like education, I am wistful when I think about, I could have actually learned this, walked onto set like knowing the terminology instead of trying to eavesdrop all the time. But again, it made me kind of a fighter. Like, if you really want to learn it, you're going to eavesdrop, you're going to sleep on the cement, you're going to do the hard PA jobs, you're going to fight for it.
I think one of the disadvantages you would find is, like you said, you knew from pretty young or early on what the kind of main career path it is that you were expecting to take. If you didn't know, or even for me as an artist, if I had been like, I still don't know what I really want to do, then there probably is a disadvantage, because the amount of effort it would take to try and learn, as you say, you got kind of a wide view of this is production design, this is set deck, this is art, this is sound, this is playback, this is boom, this is camera, this is AC. I imagine that it would be very hard to replicate that amount of network and knowledge, because trying to figure out how many positions there are and find access and reference points to all of it would probably be tricky. So that might be an advantage that film school has, dependent on the program, is that if you want to experience everything and make a choice once you've tried, that might be a little bit of an easier off. Yeah, there are moments where, for me as an actor, I go, yeah, you'll get on set with a director that goes, oh, well, the Stanislavski technique. And I go, oh, I've heard that name numerous times. Have I studied it? No, because there are directors you will meet on my side that want to work out of Meisner or Method or Stanislavski, Hagen, Adler, all of these old school techniques that are still very apt and can be used when used properly. So I think in some ways, like, if you end up with a creative team that is in their 50s, 60s, 70s that are working off of very old school mentalities that are taught more through curriculum based, yeah, it's probably harder, unless, as you say, you've put the groundwork and gone, I want to meet people who know this. I want to understand it. I don't have to know everything, but I do want to know these little pieces, so that if I work with a DP who speaks one way versus a DP who looks at a shot another way, that I don't feel like we're speaking two different languages. Because on set is communication. And that's one thing that I think doesn't matter film school or otherwise. You need to learn how to communicate with people who come from a different background. How do I see the landscape evolving? I think it's going to get easier and easier personally. I mean, when we look at just the structure of the world of cost, of, what the year we have now cost in relevant terms to 1950, then 1980, then 2000, you're getting these red cameras that are 10, 12 years old that people are like, they're useless to me and I'm just getting rid of them. 20 years ago, trying to get that same comparison would have been more money, just like how the first computers cost in relevant terms today, $15,000, $20,000, and you can now get a computer for $199 from Best Buy. So I think access to resources will get easier just because more people will have them.
Okay, so when I was, I think, around 17, I actually went to VFS's, Vancouver Film School's open house secretly because, I mean, I kind of knew my parents wouldn't really be into that. And this was at the point where I kind of got interested in like all these behind the scenes. Like I was the kid that was just like, my summers were just watching 5 movies a day and watching like the bonus content. Oh, I really like this. Like maybe I should look into filmmaking. And then afterwards I told my parents like, hey, I checked this out. I think I'm kind of interested in this. And I think I went, no. And I was like, okay. So that was kind of it for me. I think, you know, at that age, your parents' approval and their support means a lot. I mean, it still does, of course. But so for that reason, I just kind of shoved that idea in the back of my mind. And also, it was so expensive. Like, I couldn't afford it anyway. So those are the 2 big reasons why I didn't go. I started volunteering more, networking, and then I ended up with a job in post-production at a local film production company. I've PA'd a lot in commercials. I started directing short films, music videos, and I think now it's just a matter of keep doing that, don't stop, because this is where I wanted to be 3 years ago, and now I'm living like this dream that I had when I was 17 and just kind of tossed outside, and it's all of a sudden back.
And for me, I had always wanted to go to bigger schools. My dreams were Ryerson, for AMDA, for BYU, for OCU, all incredible training programs. But I was 17, and I'm like, money-wise, financially, lifestyle, it's not in my realm to want to do that. I auditioned for the Book of Mormon on Broadway. I auditioned for Capilano Musical Theater Department, and I auditioned for 3 different dance training programs. And I got rejected from all 5. Now, Capilano was kind of a beauty because after I did the audition, funny enough, of Cap World, it wasn't good or bad. Their views were just so contrasting to how I felt about the industry. And a lot of how you talk about that, like you're taught to like suffer and be no one and just grind the work. And I go, there's a reality to that, 100%. You got to put in long hours, whether you're in film or theater. But I didn't like this view of like, you are no one and learn to be that way. And I go, that's not what an artist, any of the artists that I respected, whether as a choreographer, dancer, actor, even filmmakers, I went, they're not the same as everyone. They're the ones that stand out in a crowd of 1 million and you know that person's work, and that's what I wanted. So thankfully I got some recommendations and I just took a year and I studied anything I could get my hands on. I started working or training as an actor, as a voice actor, as a mocap performer. I was teaching dance at studios. It was the summer of 2014 where we found out that this production called Off the Island, directed by Kenny Ortega, was coming to Vancouver. And I auditioned with 650 people in a single day of auditions. And I made it to the top 50 of the day. And we got to meet Kenny Ortega, and he's like, you're incredible. You've got something special. I went, I've made it. And then I didn't book the job, and I went, what is wrong with all of this? Yeah. But I got booked as an extra, and at the time I didn't know what extra work was, and I showed up on set at 5 a.m. at Bridge Studios in a 50-foot green screen stage, 50 feet high, gosh knows how wide. And the makeup artist goes, is this your first day ever on set? And I go, well, yeah, how can you tell? She's like, you're happy. That'll change.
Oh my God.
And I went, why? And then 6 hours into extra work, I went, oh, that's why. And through a weird set of circumstances, I got upgraded to an actor role on the set. And my first acting job was opposite Dove Cameron, Boo Boo Stewart, Cameron Boyce, rest in peace, and Sophia Carson. And that was the first time I had ever acted with professional actors. I really thank that job for setting my career, because without that experience of having gone so well, of having been such a great opening and having such a kind cast and crew to work with, I don't know if I would have stuck with acting.
Taking into account the diverse perspectives and experiences shared here, what is your ultimate stance on the film school versus no film school debate? Have your opinions changed after the discussion? I think my stance stays the same. It depends on you. You know, if you want to go to film school and that you feel that you'll gain something from film school, then do that. But if you do film school, you have to apply yourself to that. And it's like, use that time, use that gear, really create something with that time.
Really depends on who you are, where you want to go, what role you're in. I would say like the more technical of a role you're in, maybe the more benefit you'll get out of it in terms of workflows and just kind of knowing this is a camera body and that's a lens and whatnot, and then go out from there and work while you're in film school.
I want to say no. Like, I'm still going with the belief that you don't need film school, but it's like saying to everybody in a room, like, no, you don't need to go to university in general. Well, that's not true. Some people need to and want to, etc. So, like everybody else, it really depends. And maybe watch this video before you make your decision. Ask people who are older than you, ask people who have gone to film school, like, do a coffee chat, cold message them. If you're somebody like me and you kind of identify with the things that I mentioned, then I would say don't go. But you have to know yourself.
Know why you're making the choice. Whether it's university or not, know why you're making the choice. Don't choose it because your friends are doing it. If you're lucky enough to have the ability to make a choice, and this is not just in career choice or university life, yeah, you might mess up. You might make the wrong choice in the moment, but that choice might lead you to where you're supposed to be. So if you trust in your intuition, if you do the best research possible, and whether it's listening to the four of us who are four incredible filmmakers, all with unique perspectives, all with different backgrounds, all who've had great careers in different ways and unique ways and special ways, I think if you want it bad enough, you'll find a way, and that's it. Just love what you do.